Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to start off with a warning. This video ends in a cliffhanger, meaning that there won't be an answer until at least the following video. What we're starting off with here is a fresh install of Windows 10 22H2. So let's talk about this cliffhanger. Microsoft has recently disclosed that they're going to provide free extended support updates to anybody in Europe with Windows 10 until 2026. There are some caveats to that, however. One is that you need to have an online account. You can't use a local logon. And the second one is you have to store all of your personal files in OneDrive, including system backups, which makes me think they're up to something. But that got me thinking. You see, we know from previous versions of Windows that the extended support updates are always available on the Microsoft catalog. And since, unlike China, fundamentally there's no difference between the European version and the American version of Windows 10, there's absolutely no reason we shouldn't be able to install updates manually from the catalog site. Which means that even though we don't have an online account or online storage or are part of Europe, we should still be able to access those updates through the global catalog site, download them, and install them manually on our system. So the cliffhanger is that we don't have access to the ESU updates because they haven't been released yet. They actually likely won't be released till November or even possibly December. So it'll take us a couple months before we have access to the ESU updates on the actual global catalog site to test to see if we could download them. And then obviously install them. Something else that I've been questioning recently is specifically LTSB updates. Now I know we've talked about LTSC in recent videos, which is technically the IoT version of Windows 10. Now, LTSC generally is built on 21H2, but it's not an entirely 21H2 build, meaning that it actually shares the same kernel as Server 2022. And that kernel is kind of a customized platform. You see, 21H2 on the server is actually Windows 11 with a Windows 10 GUI. So when we talk about 21H2 on Server 2022, it's really technically a Windows 11 21H2 build with the visualization of a Windows 10 21H2 build. I know, confusing, right? But LTSB is different. LTSB had the ability to run feature updates from 1607 to 21H2. So technically, LTSB is still the Windows 10 kernel. And that's when I started to think, maybe it's possible for us to use an LTSB update on a Windows 10 21H2 build. And if not, where does it fail? How does it fail? And can we circumvent the failure? You see, LTSB technically has three different end-of-life dates. One is 2025 or October 14th, which was with the rest of Windows 10. The second one is on October 13th, 2026, which I believe is the same branch that Microsoft is going to use to continue to update with the extended security updates that are available to the European users. Then there's the last version, which ends in October of 2029. That's the version I'm targeting here to get to work on our Windows 10 system, at least as a proof of concept. The curiosity that I have isn't so much whether or not we can do it, because it doesn't make any sense or difference to me, because I would never use it as a production system. But I'm curious what the difference is in the update process when we look at things like Windows 7 or even Windows XP. Because keep in mind, Windows XP was end of life in 2014, but technically we had updates available on that system until well into 2020. And the reason was because of various update packages for various versions of Windows XP. In the core, they were all just Windows XP. But in reality, we had the point of sale, we had point of sale 2019, we had a variety of different systems that were really the core of Windows XP. So changing a single registry key gave you the ability to run different types of packages or updates on XP until 2020. Now, I suspect Microsoft learned from that and changed something more inside of Windows 10. But I'm very curious about it. And I think one of the best places we could start with is downloading an LTSB update and attempting to install it on our offline Windows 10 21H2 system. I figure that'll give us a good basis as to where we could build off of to try to get it to install on this system. Because keep in mind, unlike LTSC, LTSB is built on Windows 10. So if you wouldn't mind, I'm gonna start offline and install the VMware tools so we could get a bigger screen. Okay gang, so we're back up. We have our VMware tools installed. The first place I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on Start. I'm going to go to System so you can see what the system variables are set for. We can see here that this is 21H2. We are not running an LTSC or an LTSB version of 21H2. It is just 21H2 right out of the box. This machine also hasn't been online yet, meaning that there has been no interaction between here and Microsoft, so this is a fresh build. So we are missing a huge amount of updates on this system, which basically means that anything I install on it should be newer than whatever is on it. I mentioned that so we could rule out the possibility of trying to install an update that has already been applied to the system. Let's start with closing this. Let's go to our File Explorer. Let's go to this PC. We're going to go to our shared location. We're going to go to our drive. And we're going to grab the update for Windows 10 here. And we're going to copy it and move it local. So that way we're not running it straight from the network drive. So let's just call it Tools. Let's paste this in here. Hold on. I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's take a look at where I got the updates from. So what I ended up doing is looking to see specifically what updates were available for this system that were only updates that were available for the LTSB version. While I wasn't able to successfully find any, because you have to understand that Microsoft won't spend the time to create two different update KBs for the exact same operating system. I was able to find updates, however, that were specific to LTSB. And those updates, as you can see, are on the Microsoft Catalog website. So I used the Microsoft Catalog website and I located the LTSB version of the cumulative update for KB 5066791. For the x86 and 64 platform. Back on Windows 10, we can now see that we have the update. So let's see what happens. You can see I did download the 64-bit version. The x86 is listed here. I know it's probably small on your screens, but it is the 64-bit version. But let's see what happens. Let's double-click on this and see if it'll actually install the LTSB update on this particular system. Interestingly enough, we haven't gotten any notifications that it's failed to launch, so at least it gets past the point where we can double-click on it. Let's see what happens when we click on Yes. Well, it's copying the package over. That's interesting. It appears to actually install. Now this is game-changing if this actually works. That means that you could grab the LTSB updates that exist till 2029 and run them on your 21H2 build of Windows 10. Because so far we haven't thrown any errors. Now there is an unfortunate to this too, which is this is another one of those cliffhangers. Because now we're going to have to wait until probably November or December for the next release of updates for LTSB to occur. And then try to install those on our 21H2 system. Since once again, keep in mind, this is not an LTSB build. Could it be possible that rather than adding things to the Microsoft Windows operating system, Microsoft removed things? So before you used to have to change it to the point of sale system in Windows XP to run an update after the end of life. But now you don't have to do anything. You could just double click on the executable to install it. Well, guys, I think you're probably just as shocked as I am, but it installed correctly. We're going to reboot and see what happens. I guess the question is, will it fail here? So I'm actually shocked that this is working. Just keep in mind that this machine doesn't have a ton of resources and there is stuff going on in the background. Logging back into Windows 10 and we are up after the update. And just for a proof of concept, let's go to Start. We'll right click. Oop, lost my mouse there for a second. Let's go back to System. Scroll down. Windows 10 Pro 21H2. So what do you guys think? Is it possible that this will work in November or December? I know we're kind of leaving this on a cliffhanger for both systems, and that kind of stinks. I would really like to have like a proof of concept that shows that we could update past the end of life with these changes or following this, step-by-step process to downloading the stuff from the catalog. But as a proof of concept so far, it seems to work. So I'm not sure if it's not going to work once they release it for November or December. So I guess you guys are going to have to just check back and take a look at the next video that's released when we have the ability to update past the end of life. I would tell you guys definitely like and subscribe the video. If you don't mind, throw a comment down below. Let me know whether or not you think this will work after the, in November or December or even January. Or whether or not you think this was just a fluke because maybe it shares the same update package as the other 21H2 builds. All I know is it didn't require me to make any registry changes. Stay tuned for the next release in this project. Let's see what happens.